Hey everyone, quick favor to ask before we get to the show. Could you please, if you got time, go to podcastlistener.com/LEFT and answer a few short questions. It would be super helpful to all three of us. Again, that's podcastlistener.com/LEFT. Answer a short survey if you got time. Thank you so much, everyone. Here's the show.
There's no place to escape to.
This is the last podcast.
On the left. That's when the cannibalism started.
What was that?
Let's see. So should we start the show?
Let's start the show.
All right. Welcome to the last podcast on the left, everyone. I am Ben Kitzel. That's Marcus Parks.
Hello.
And we've got H-Bone, Henry Zabrowski in Atlanta.
Oklahoma, where the wind comes in down plains. It's not going to be as fun as the musical.
No, it definitely will
be a sad one.
No, today we're going to be talking about Oklahoma City. Of course, the bombing that occurred in 1995. Extremely heavy topic, but once again, Marcus and H-Bone, I think there's some crack research in here and a lot of information that's going to be enlightening to our audience.
So on April 19th, 1995, a conspiracy-minded Gulf War vet named Timothy McVeigh parked a 7,000-pound ammonium nitrate fuel bomb loaded on a yellow Ryder moving truck in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City. When all was said and done after the bomb was detonated, 168 people were dead and over 800 were injured.
And honestly, that's his biggest crime. His second biggest crime is owning that neon yellow Mercury.
Oh my God.
Drove around in, which is disgusting.
It's a pastel yellow, all right.
We'll get into some of his interesting car choices, to say the least. Although I will say in this episode, no yacht, which that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's Oklahoma. It's landlocked.
Okay.
No, according to McVeigh, this act of domestic terror was done in part as retaliation for the siege at the Mount Carmel compound in Waco, Texas, the climax of which came 2 years to the day before the Oklahoma City bombing. For those of you who don't know, the Waco siege involved a cult named the Branch Davidians. The Davidians were stockpiling various weapons. The ATF got wind. They decided to raid the place and fucked up the entire operation spectacular.
Now, I will say I do not support what the federal government did regarding Waco, or we'll get into Ruby Ridge, but Janet Reno was played perfectly by Will Ferrell on Saturday Night Live. And so that is a bright side. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And the Branch Davidians were not good.
No.
They did not do good things.
No.
But the ATF fucked up everything, and we're going to see that they're going to fuck up a lot more as the time goes. And I don't know why, because it seems like a very sensitive place. It seems like everyone should be really good at their jobs at the ATF. But it seems like they really mess it up. They bungle. There's a bunch of bumblebutts.
Yeah, that's true.
By the end of the 51-day Waco siege, 76 Branch Davidians, including 25 children, had died in a fire set under the direction of cult leader David Koresh as government agencies stormed the compound in a last-ditch effort to flush out the cult members. Now, there was a lot of bad shit happening in that compound, not the least of which was David Koresh's multiple child brides.
And
which would have been totally cool if he had made Annie Hall first.
This is technically a Woody Allen joke, so we're going to let that pass.
Thank you.
But of course, this is where a lot of the conspiracy theories come in as well when it comes to the fire. There's a lot of different videos and stuff. And they're like, you can see them spraying in napalm and those sorts of things, which
is not what they did. That wasn't what it was. It was tear gas. David Koresh set the fires to kill everyone.
There was an audio recording of them saying, like, David said to pour the fuel, right? It's like, yeah, David said to pour the fuel. Man, I wish we had more hay.
Yep, I can't wait.
Yeah. And we'll also get a lot more into those videos that show the flames supposedly coming out of the tanks in Waco. That's going to play a huge part in this story. Videos and rumors like that.
These conspiracy theories have real life ramifications, and that's what we're talking about here.
They absolutely do, because that's the thing, is that the radical right didn't see it that way. They didn't see it as David Koresh had all these child brides that needed to be free. In their minds, and specifically in the mind of Timothy McVeigh, Waco was proof that all the conspiracy theories that have been swirling around gun shows and in pamphlets for years were finally coming true. Now, remember...
Honestly, if gun shows weren't so bad, it does sound like a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if they were like literally like Beverly Hills Cop 3, where you just had a really quirky European dude selling you huge weapons, that's fun. And you have a crime that you have to solve and stuff. But usually it's just people who want to get an arsenal of guns to protect their families from cows.
Yeah. Now, remember, all this is pre-internet. If you wanted to get a hold of wacky shit, you had to go out of your way and look for it.
The good old days.
Yeah.
You had to really work to be a conspiracy theory
You did, man.
theorist back then.
Do you remember the dude that we used to go to in Union Square, the big fat guy that would wear sunglasses at night?
Oh,
and you'd
yeah.
have to go through his piles of stuff to find the really fucked up esoteric documentaries about how like Martin Luther King was half Jewish and he was he had cyborg legs.
Yeah, that was back in the day. It's a similar thing when weed is legalized. You no longer have to hang out with the weird guy who just wants to chill for 90 minutes and you try to get him out of your apartment as quick as possible.
Yeah, see, conspiracies about the New World Order coming to take away your guns and subjugate the American people, that shit wasn't in your pocket.
Right.
You had to go searching on the fringes for that type of thought. And Waco wasn't even the beginning for these people as far as the far-reaching New World Order conspiracies went. Less than a year earlier, the ATF had participated in another huge fuck-up in a siege at Ruby Ridge in northern Idaho.
I would go as far to say is that Ruby Ridge was a genuinely gigantic fuck up.
Oh,
even more so than
absolutely.
Waco. Ruby Ridge was like, they performed almost on a criminal level. The fact that, we'll go through it right now.
We'll get into it, yeah.
See, Ruby Ridge was a standoff between the U.S. government and a white supremacist named Randy Weaver, who was holed up in the cabin with his wife, 2 kids, and a friend of theirs. Long story short, by the end of it, Randy's wife and son were dead, an ATF agent was dead, and Randy and his friend were wounded. Well, what the story was with Ruby Ridge is this guy, Randy Weaver, had pretty much been entrapped into sawing off some barrels off of shotguns, and he had a warrant
By the U.S. government.
By the U.S. government.
They set him up. And then this is very standard FBI, ATF procedure. You just get one, you tell them they're in a very difficult predicament, and you flip them to get all of the leaders. Randy Weaver was not a leader in the white supremacist movement. That's why they were using him to get to the big fish. He refused to go along with the ATF and what the federal government wanted to do. So they just holed up in their home, and it just escalated. And every mistake that could be made was made. And then you have the situation where the death of his son, the death of his wife. The ATF, the FBI did not realize they shot his wife, and they consistently used him. They would tell him to just let your wife free, and then we can negotiate. And he thought that they were taunting him.
Yeah, he sat in that house with his dead wife for a week before
Can
they
you
finally
imagine
came
that?
out. Yeah. So McVeigh, he used these 2 incidents to justify his actions.
Yeah.
Here's McVeigh saying that himself.
Who started the war? And who was the aggressor? That's how I look at the Murrah bombing. To me, it wasn't the start of a war, it was a counterattack. The war had already been started. You guys think you can be ruthless? Let's see how you like it when the fight is brought to you.
And
Go fuck yourself.
Oh my God.
That's what I say. I say go fuck yourself.
That would be the appropriate response. But Ruby Ridge was really amplified as well by this character, Bo Gritz, who was a big leader in the white supremacist movement, also at the time running for president. So he took this as a diplomatic opportunity to show what a great diplomatic leader he would be, and he attempted to broker the deal between the family and the FBI.
And he did, but if you watch the document, there's a documentary, a great American Experience documentary about Ruby Ridge, and they interview Bo Gritz, and man, he is so happy to have been a part of something.
I gotta say, it's an opportunity. It's just nice to be a part of it. You know, it's like when I was first. Now that I'm on the set of Crashing, HBO's Crashing, it's a wonderful opportunity.
The official story is that Timothy McVeigh was a lone wolf helped by a man named Terry Nichols, who said that he went along with it only because McVeigh had threatened both Nichols' life and the life of his family. But to me, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
If you look at the history of mass murder in America, lone wolves are sick people. They're guys like Charles Whitman at UT, who had a brain tumor, or Sung Cho at Virginia Tech, who had more mental problems than we have time to go into here.
And a very strange YouTube account. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, Timothy McVeigh is not writing Richard McBeef.
He should have, though. Right. Honestly, though, if he could have just managed to channel his anger into song, the songs would have been horrible.
Yes,
but at least they would have been songs.
Now, Timothy McVeigh was not sick. Sure, he no doubt suffered from PTSD from his time in the Gulf War, which we will get into, but McVeigh was not sick the way Sung Cho was sick. McVeigh was radicalized.
Absolutely. He was a part of a gigantic network. I think he was completely supported. I'm with you, Dog Meat, on that whole front. He was given a copy of a book called The Turner Diaries that we're going to go into more deeper detail next episode. But that book is going to be sort of like the invitation to the Aryan nation that is going to move people. This is American ISIS. It's essentially, and like people like Louis Beam, who came out and said this idea of leaderless revolution, of little pods of people doing gigantic, horrible, violent acts that he hoped would just happen without a central network, which is terrorism. That is domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Timothy McVeigh is the definition of domestic terrorism.
He's the poster child of domestic terrorism.
He is the Garth Brooks of domestic terrorism.
Don't bring Garth Brooks into this. Every time you bring up Garth Brooks, I'm forced to get defensive because the thunder does roll, and we have to remember that the thunder rolls. It's not just a weather report; it's also a great song.
You know who was the face of domestic terrorism before this, which is sad that he got bumped? The kid from Problem Child.
If you really take those movies like a serious crime drama, he was horrible.
Dennis the Menace.
Yep.
American terrorist.
Now, in this series, we aim to show just how Timothy McVeigh got to this point, how he was inspired by a white separatist, quote-unquote, patriot movement that still thrives and is defended to this day, and how irrational conspiracy beliefs justified McVeigh's actions to himself. We also plan to show how it is very possible, if not probable, that there were many more people involved than just McVeigh and Nichols, and how the entire thing, just like 9/11, 6 years later, could have been prevented if not for the incompetence and short-sightedness of a few law enforcement officials who weren't listening to what their people were telling them.
And they were actively fighting one another. They were in competition with one another, not fighting for the greater good of the American people, which was what they should be doing.
Yes.
I think the term short-sightedness is the most important thing. Like, yes, they did fuck some things up, but mostly it was about they just wanted to have the crime be closed. They wanted the case closed. They wanted Timothy McVeigh in jail, and that's it. Because the complicated weaving of getting into how do you shut down Elohim City? How do you shut down, like, the CSA? All these gigantic networks, these white supremacy networks that were sort of hidden. The white supremacy part of it just hid the patriot movement. It's weird how they used all that hate rhetoric to just be like, oh, it's just a bunch of idiots in the mountains talking about how they hate other races, but actually they were preparing for a war against the U.S. government.
And again, Ruby Ridge and Waco had happened previously. The FBI was kind of licking their wounds. They didn't want another situation like that.
Or the ATF.
The ATF specifically.
Yeah, absolutely not. And the ATF not wanting another situation like that is partly what led to Oklahoma City.
But again, Janet Reno, played by Will Ferrell on Saturday Night Live, that was funny.
That was funny.
But before we get to the life and times of Timothy McVeigh and the movement that at the very least inspired him, we're going to cover the actual bombing itself. As we know, a lot of our listeners are either too young to remember or may not have even been born before April 19th, 1995.
God, it makes me so sad. we just had Joey Fatone on set for Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. It's a bit of a spoiler alert. Calm down, ladies.
I know.
He brought it up that it's the 20th anniversary of NSYNC coming together next year. And I was like, that's horrible. That's ridiculous.
NSYNC can vote? Oh, no. And they were 1 year away from drinking.
NSYNC's been able to vote for 2 years, man.
Oh,
Where
my
you been?
God. That's crazy.
But before we get into it, we have to cite our main sources here. The first is American Terrorist by Lou Mickle and Dan Herbeck. It's the book that was essentially endorsed by McVeigh. It's where he told his life story. Although it still doesn't paint a flattering portrait of McVeigh, this guy was the only guy that McVeigh actually talked to.
It's also, there's no way it's going to be a flattering portrait unless it's a pamphlet at a gun show. There's no way you can sugarcoat the story enough to be like, you can't say all the details, but it's like, but also, he could have been an incredible dancer. He had an elegant arch to his feet.
I mean, and as far as haircuts go, he definitely had one. It was definitive.
He was very proud of his brush cut. He called it his brush cut, and that was one of the things that he hated most about being in prison was that he wasn't able to get a good brush cut anymore.
Oh, poor guy.
Sling blade looking country inbred sister fucking piece of shit.
But of course, he was on death row, so this was an opportunity for him to really share his story and get his point of view out there.
The other book that we checked out, and this one is the really interesting one, and it only came out a couple years ago after a ton of FBI files were finally released. The other book is Oklahoma City, What the Investigation Missed and Why It Still Matters by Andrew Gumbel and Roger Charles. This one refutes McVeigh's story in a number of ways and also gives a fantastic overview of everything that went wrong here.
Okay,
and the one thing I will say definitely in defense of this book, it has 80 pages of source material, of citing where it gets all of its different points. It's very, very thorough. It's a really cool breakdown. It's a little mind-numbing because it's a lot of details, but it paints a picture of why it was so difficult to investigate the incident and the evidence that points towards there was a whole network that was working with Timothy McVeigh.
And also to prove that this book is valid and reasonable, in those 80 pages of source material, not one of the sources is InfoWars. So that's that's good. That's definitive proof.
Guys, hopefully we got to give our support to our boy Alex Jones. Tonight's his big night.
I don't want to talk
big
about
debut
that.
tonight.
We're not talking about the Alex Jones Megyn Kelly interview.
Well, Alex Jones is a speaking of Alex Jones,
Yes.
Oklahoma City is one of Alex Jones's big inside job claims.
Right.
And he says that the entire thing was done to malign the quote-unquote Patriot movement. The Patriot movement is a white supremacist movement, and
Big night for him tonight. I hope he shines. I hope he wins best cinematography. I don't know what he's going to do tonight, but whatever it is going to be fascinating. All eyes on him.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the start of Alex Jones really starting to get into like inside job bullshit. Like Oklahoma City was one of his first big conspiracy theories.
And that's what we're going to get into here. There were so many different holes in the official narrative. It was able to be filled by conspiracy theorists to then prove whatever point they want to prove, whatever narrative they wanted to create, they were able to create.
Absolutely. And the reason why those holes existed was because of incompetence.
Right.
Through and through. That's how it always goes with these, is that the holes are always caused by incompetence that the government does not want exposed. It's not that they're trying to not expose evils that they've done. Sometimes they are, but most of the time they're just trying to cover up how badly they fucked up.
That is the great...
Bad investigations leave these incidents sort of like, they become like a Sasha Grey. So many holes to be filled with conspiracy theories, and I think that and it's available for it, and it's hungry for it, and it's horny for it.
Okay, well we did manage to get there.
Very good. Now let's get to the bombing itself. Now that we've got Sasha Grey out of the way,
Thank God.
Thank you. It's been burning.
God.
It's been burning in my pocket for a while.
That's good. I'm happy it's been released. The genie is out of the bottle.
Now, the site of the bombing was the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City. While there were offices for the ATF, Secret Service, and DEA in the building, it was mostly run-of-the-mill government offices. It was stuff like Social Security, Housing and Urban Development, Veterans Affairs, Army recruiting, and just like a lot of other buildings like this, there was a daycare there as well. 550 people worked at the Murrah Building, but that doesn't account for the hundreds who came in and out every day to use basic governmental services, many of whom were there on the morning of April 19th. This was 9 a.m. This place had just opened up. See, McVeigh was faced with a choice. He could very well have set a bomb to explode in the middle of the night, when fatalities would be kept to a minimum. But McVeigh didn't want to just destroy a building. He thought that the only way to catch the government's attention would be to rack up a high body count.
Terrorism.
And as far as the loss of innocent life went, McVeigh rationalized it by comparing the people inside to employees on the Death Star.
Woo, woo, woo. We've got a nerd alert. We've got a nerd alert. We've got a nerd alert. Woo, woo.
Another way for George Lucas to get his merchandising.
That's right.
Into American events.
So this is out of Timothy McVeigh's. This is his actual analogy. He equated them to individuals who worked on the Death Star from Star Wars.
His mouth. Directly from McVeigh's mouth. In his rationalization, while not every person on the Death Star was individually guilty of crimes against the galaxy, they were still serving on behalf of Emperor Palpatine, in this case represented by Bill Clinton.
It's not
Which
real.
I actually really resent, because Emperor Palpatine definitely could not still get an erection.
Oh, absolutely
Bill Clinton
not.
could.
He definitely could. To his own detriment.
See, McVeigh thought of himself as Luke Skywalker.
Oh my God. I can't even with this jerk off. I am like a little Luke Skywalker, if you think about it.
Well, that's just like Luke Skywalker, because Luke Skywalker also wanted to fuck his sister.
Well, this is kind of
red. Shit, fuck.
Well, Ben, me and you were kind of talking about stuff like this on the last episode of Top Hat.
Yeah.
Where a lot of these people, they want their lives to be movies.
Totally.
They want their lives to be simple movies with bad guys. They want to be the hero, and they want it to all be wrapped up in a nice little package.
And we have 168 innocent dead people because of this moron's trying to live the extension of a film that he loves.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Timothy McVeigh was using set-up rhetoric. He is parroting things that he has heard. He has sat and thought about the statements he was going to make. All of this is rehearsed. I imagine that they used pop culture in a lot of their recruiting material.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that where it's just like, so it's because it makes it a very simple, attention-grabbing description of your action, and it's so easily printable in a newspaper, which is what they wanted.
Today's sponsor for Last Podcast on the Left is Blue Apron. Springtime is a great time to hit the reset button and re-tackle personal goals like getting fit, cleaning, and cooking. Luckily, Blue Apron makes incredible home cooking easy and accessible by delivering seasonal recipes with step-by-step instructions and pre-portioned ingredients right to your door, all for less than $10 per meal. You can even customize your recipes based on your preferences and select a delivery option that's right for you. Plus, there's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. Some of the meals available in June include warm smoked trout and asparagus salad with fingerling potatoes and garlic croutons, spiced zucchini enchiladas with creamy lime and tomato rice, elote-style vegetable tostadas with summer squash, poblano peppers, and cilantro rice, and peach honey glazed chicken with mashed sweet potatoes, collard greens, and Thai basil. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/LEFT. You'll love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So don't wait. That's blueapron.com/LEFT. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Today's other sponsor for Last Podcast on the Left is Stamps.com. Avoid the hassle of the post office and mail everything from postcards to envelopes to packages, domestic or international, with Stamps.com. Stamps.com lets you buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter, any package, any class of mail using your own computer and printer. Simply click, print, mail, and you're done. And unlike the post office, Stamps.com never closes. Print postage for letters or packages at your convenience 24/7. Plus, they'll even send you a digital scale that automatically calculates exact postage and helps you decide the best class of mail based on your needs. Stamps.com brings all the services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your fingertips. We here at Last Podcast on the Left, we're a DIY operation. We're a small business. We've used Stamps.com and absolutely love it. And right now, you too can enjoy the Stamps.com service with a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale without long-term commitments. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in LEFT. That's Stamps.com. Enter LEFT. Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again. Now, by blowing up the Death Star, in this case, represented by the Murrah building.
Yeah, can you imagine the daycare of the Death Star?
Yeah. McVeigh would be seen as a hero, striking back against an evil empire.
It goes back to John Wilkes Booth. You know, he thought the same thing. They all think they're going to be heroes. It never happens that way.
It never
You're
works.
never
they
the
all
hero.
die in fire. They all get murdered. You're a fucking moron.
Yeah.
It never works different.
In reality, 80% of the people who died in the blast had no connection whatsoever to law enforcement. They were just regular people going to work in a government job to make ends meet.
Yeah, just trying to get to the weekend so they can go fishing and like try to forget that they work at the Murrah building.
Yeah.
The exact number is 138 out of 168. Had nothing to do with any one of those apartments. And it's not even just, you're just talking about the ATF too. This is 9 a.m. This is before the big guys even get in.
Yeah.
You're literally looking at low-level ATF employees. It's fucked up.
So just a little before 9 a.m., Timothy McVeigh, according to him, pulled the yellow Ryder truck on the side of the road and lit the first fuse. Soon after, he lit the second while waiting at a stoplight. He then pulled the Ryder truck into a drop-off point cut into the sidewalk on the north side of the Murrah building, got out, put in a pair of earplugs, and walked towards his getaway car.
Now, apparently, one thing that may have happened is that was his second plan. That was his backup plan. The first plan is that he was supposed to go into the underground garage underneath the building. But the fucking idiot didn't realize how big the Ryder truck was and spent 15 minutes backing in and out of the front of the fucking parking structure.
God.
And they said, because there was eyewitnesses that say that you see him around driving the Ryder truck because basically he's scrambling to come up with the next plan, which is like, you figure that'd be the first thing. You've been casing a building for months.
Right.
And you didn't fucking think about the stupid truck.
Right. And so now he lit the wick. And I mean, this does take a lot of patience and a lot of calm. I mean, obviously he was calm to be able to drive around with a loaded bomb that was lit.
He was he was extremely calm the entire time.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's why you were saying earlier, that's why he's not nuts. He's very focused.
He is extremely focused. Yeah, he's not unstable in any way whatsoever. This man knew exactly what he was doing at every turn and felt good about what he was doing at every turn. And McVeigh's getaway car was a pastel 1977 Mercury Marquis that McVeigh had parked just a few blocks away with a note on the window that read, "Not abandoned. Please do not tow. Will move by April 23rd. Needs battery and cables."
And that just shows the confidence of white people that you could just put a note in there. You're like, oh, they'll understand. Everybody understands notes. That's